What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. So today we're diving into one of the most interesting comparisons in gaming. Two absolute juggernauts that literally changed how we think about difficult games. Demon's Souls Remake on PS5 versus Elden Ring. Now, before you say anything, I know these games came out years apart, but that's exactly why this comparison is so damn interesting. Because here's the thing, FromSoftware didn't just make a bigger Elden Ring, they made something completely different. And Bluepoint, they just showed us what peak PS5 graphics actually looks like with the Demon's Souls remake. So let's break this down. Are we talking about pure difficulty, gameplay, the worlds, or maybe which one's actually gonna make you want to smash your controller? Let's find out. Okay, so the first thing that jumps out when you compare these two games is the world itself. And this is where they're like completely different animals. Demon's Souls, it's got this hub-based system. You've got the Nexus, right? This beautiful, dark, otherworldly hub world where you pick which area you want to go into. And here's what's cool about it. Every single world has its own theme, its own identity. You've got Stonefang Mine with all the heavy industrial vibes. Then you jump to Latria, which is this creepy prison world where you just feel like you're being watched the entire time. And the Valley of Defilement, dude, that place is pure nightmare fuel. Diseased, rotting, miserable. But here's the key. You know where you're going, and the level is designed around that one goal. Point A to point B, with sick architecture and exploration on the way. Now, Elden Ring, they just said, you know what? Forget the hub. Open worlds, baby, and I mean that literally. You can see the entire lands between from wherever you're standing. And FromSoftware is like, enjoy 100+ dungeons scattered around, massive castles on the horizon, underground cities, and a horse that materializes whenever you want. It's the freedom fantasy, except sometimes that freedom actually works against it, because you've got so much to explore that it's easy to get overwhelmed. But here's the thing about Demon's Souls that people don't talk about enough. Those levels are tight. They're not just linear corridors, they're these intricate, interconnected spaces where you find shortcuts, you remember where you died, and next time you know exactly how to avoid that spot. Meanwhile, in Elden Ring, the open world means you can stumble into some godly boss arena at level 30 and get absolutely destroyed, which is cool, but it's also chaotic. Alright, so combat. This is where people get confused, so let me clarify something real quick. Demon's Souls isn't actually harder than Elden Ring overall. They're just hard in completely different ways. It's like comparing a boxer to an MMA fighter, you know? Demon's Souls combat is methodical. You swing your weapon, you wait for the opening, and then you attack. The bosses aren't trying to juggle you with 10 different combos. They've got patterns, clear tells, and if you're patient, you'll eventually learn them. The challenge there is more about the journey to the boss, because get this, there's only one checkpoint per area. One. So if you die near the end of a level, congratulations, you're walking all the way back. Some people find shortcuts to make it faster, but dude, that's brutal on a first playthrough. The bosses themselves, most of them are pretty chill compared to other Souls games, but the endurance test, that's real. Now jump into Elden Ring and the bosses are a different animal entirely. These things are doing delayed attacks to mess with your timing, they're aggressive as hell, and they don't give you much breathing room. You've got bosses like Melania, Blade of Miquella, who's basically a speed demon that just wants to end your entire career. The guy's got combos that look like they never end. But, and this is important, you've got tools that Demon's Souls doesn't really give you. You can summon AI helpums called Ashes of War. You can use magic, throwing knives, spells, explosions, whatever. You're not stuck with your sword and shield. And because it's open world, if a boss is destroying you, you can literally just leave and go somewhere else. Come back when you're stronger. That's huge. So, which is harder? Honestly, I'd say Elden Ring's bosses are objectively tougher, but Demon's Souls punishes you harder for mistakes in the moment because of those long runbacks. It's like Demon's Souls is an endurance test and Elden Ring is a skill test. Different flavors, both brutal. Let me talk about the stories, because this is where things get interesting in a different way. Demon's Souls has this religious horror vibe. There's King Allant, who's basically decided that suffering is eternal, and you know what? He's gonna solve that by waking up an ancient demon god and letting it consume the entire world. Why? Because if everyone's dead, no one's suffering anymore. It's bleak, man. It's messed up. And the game doesn't spell it out for you in cutscenes either. You're finding item descriptions, talking to NPCs, piecing together this horrific story about a kingdom that chose damnation. The old ones sitting in the background, draining souls, creating more demons, the fog consuming everything. It's genuinely unsettling. Elden Ring's story is actually way more complex. You're the Tarnished, someone who got kicked out of this world because the Elden Ring chose other people as blessed. Then the ring breaks, everything goes to chaos, and suddenly you're like, yo, maybe I should try to fix this. So you're out here collecting broken pieces of a god weapon, fighting semi-gods, and depending on what you do, you could become the Elden Lord, turn into a chaos monster, or just burn everything down. There's way more variety in the ending, way more characters with actual depth. But here's the thing, the story is hidden in environmental storytelling and NPC dialogue trees. If you're not paying attention, you'll miss 80% of the narrative. So which story hits harder? Demon Souls is more cohesive and creepy. Elden Ring is more grandiose and has more content. It depends on what you're into, honestly. Okay, visuals. And I'm going to be real with you, this is where Demon Souls absolutely dominates from a technical standpoint. Like seriously, when Bluepoint released this remake, people lost their minds because PS5 had just come out and suddenly you're playing this game that looks like... Okay, I don't even have words for how good it looks. The character models are insanely detailed, the lighting is absolutely phenomenal, the environments... Every brick, every weapon, every piece of armor has this tactile quality where you're like, yeah, I could touch that. The texture work is ridiculous. This is peak technical graphical fidelity. No competition. Elden Ring doesn't compete on pure graphics, and frankly, FromSoftware doesn't care. They're more about art direction. So while the raw texture quality might not be as crisp as Demon Souls, the world design is mind-blowing. Every region has a completely different color palette and feel. You go from lush green fields with golden rays coming from the Erd tree to this red volcanic nightmare zone to underground cities that look like a gothic nightmare came to life. The artistry is so strong that you don't really notice that the graphics aren't as crisp. You're too busy going, wow, I wonder what's over that hill. But okay, let's be honest. Demon Souls looking absolutely stunning is partly because it's a closed linear world. Bluepoint didn't have to make 1,000 different areas. They made like 5 really good ones. Elden Ring had to balance an open world with all these areas and still make it look good. They chose artistic direction over raw fidelity, and that's a valid choice. Alright, so here's my take. Which one should you play? Honestly, play both. They're different experiences. Demon Souls Remake is what I'd recommend if you want to jump into Souls games for the first time, because it's shorter, more focused, absolutely beautiful, and the bosses are more learnable. It's the tutorial that teaches you how FromSoftware works. Plus, if you've got a PS5, it's exclusive, and it's genuinely one of the best technical showcases on the console. Elden Ring is what you play when you want to get lost in a world, experiment with builds, and spend 200 hours discovering weird stuff. It's the game that changed what open world design could be. Yeah, it's more overwhelming, and yes, some of those bosses will make you question your life choices, but it's also the safer, more accessible Souls game in terms of difficulty. You can just overlevel your way through if you're struggling. If I had to pick one, Elden Ring edges it out because the content is just crazy. But Demon Souls is the better looking and arguably a better first Souls experience. So yeah, that's the comparison. Let me know in the comments which one you think is better, or if you've got another game you think deserves this matchup. And if this helped you decide which one to buy or play, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one.